You are reading this because something has gone wrong. Perhaps everything has gone wrong. The plans you made with such care have collapsed. The allies you counted upon have proven absent. The situation you face admits no obvious solution, and the hour grows late, and somewhere in the back of your mind whispers a seductive voice: give up. Accept defeat. The struggle is not worth the pain. I know that voice. I have heard it in the small hours of the morning when the candles burned low and the reports brought only ill news. I have heard it in the chambers of Parliament when those I trusted looked away. I have heard it in the silence after the bombs fell and the fires burned. And I am here to tell you this: that voice. It lies because it speaks only of what you might lose, and never of what you might become. It tallies the cost of continuing, but omits entirely the cost of surrender. It counsels safety, but delivers only a slower defeat, purchased at the price of your own soul. There exists another way, not easier, but clearer, a manner of thinking that transforms crisis from executioner to forge. And if you will walk with me through these pages, I shall show you what the victors know and what the defeated never learn. Why most men break when crisis comes? Crisis is not an aberration. It is the fundamental condition of human existence. From your first breath to your last, you are beset by forces seeking to break you. The great delusion that destroys capable men is believing that tranquility is natural and crisis exceptional. This false comfort leads them to prepare for getting back to normal rather than developing the capacity to function within perpetual uncertainty. They are preparing for yesterday's weather while the storm gathers. Let me tell you what I observed in 1940, when Britain faced invasion and our very existence hung by a thread. I watched colleagues who had spent decades in government collapse into paralysis. These were not weak men. They had navigated political storms, budget battles, diplomatic crises with considerable skill. Yet when existential threat arrived at our doorstep, they froze like rabbits before the serpent. Why? Because they had spent their careers managing discrete problems, believing each crisis would end and normalcy resume. They had never grasped that governance itself is perpetual crisis management. They thought they were sailing through occasional storms when in fact they were permanently at sea. Meanwhile, those who had internalized this truth, myself included, proceeded methodically. We expected catastrophe. When it came, we were not surprised. We simply began working. The difference was not in our courage or our intelligence. It was in our fundamental orientation to reality. They asked, "Why is this happening?" We thought, "Here it is, as expected. Now we proceed." This is the first great reorientation you must make. Most people operate from the assumption that life should be stable with occasional disruptions. This is backwards. Life is disruption with occasional stability. When you invert this assumption, paralysis transforms into preparation. You begin structuring your entire existence, mental, physical, financial, relational, around the reality of constant pressure rather than the fantasy of lasting peace. Consider any century of human history. Study the frequency of war, plague, economic collapse, political upheaval. Our era is not uniquely chaotic. We simply have better communication to hear about every crisis. The Romans faced their disasters. The medievals faced theirs. Our grandparents faced 2 global wars within a generation. This pattern is not exceptional. It is the rule. Understanding that crisis is constant does not mean surrendering to pessimism. It means developing what I call realistic optimism, the certainty that you can navigate difficulty because you expected it and prepared for it. The man who expects smooth sailing is destroyed by the first storm. But the man who expects storms, who has studied storms, who has equipped himself for storms, when they come, he is not surprised. He is ready. When you wake tomorrow morning, before checking messages or reading news, spend 60 seconds considering this question: what is one crisis I might face today? Do not catastrophize, simply identify one realistic difficulty. Then ask, if this occurs, what is my immediate response? This transforms abstract worry into concrete preparation. It takes 1 minute. That minute may save you hours of paralysis when difficulty actually arrives. And when unexpected difficulty does arrive during your day, as surely it will, notice your first thought. If it is, "Why is this happening?" interrupt yourself. Replace it with, "This is what life is. How do I respond?" This simple linguistic shift changes everything. You move from victim to agent, from paralyzed to functional. After reading this chapter, you will never again be shocked by difficulty. When problems arrive, you will not waste time asking why or feeling betrayed by fate. Instead, you will recognize crisis as the expected state and immediately access your prepared responses. This removes the paralysis of surprise. You become functional where others freeze. Your colleagues will ask how you remain calm under pressure. The answer is simple. You expected pressure. It is their surprise, not the pressure itself, that destroys them. The fatal error of preparing for yesterday's war, the second great delusion, is believing you can prepare for specific crises. I have watched soldiers brave under enemy fire collapse utterly when confronted with financial scandal. I have seen brilliant strategists, capable of moving armies across continents, become paralyzed by marital discord. The pattern is consistent and instructive. Let me tell you about a general, we shall call him Hammond, who had faced German artillery without flinching. He had led men through machine gun fire, made life-and-death decisions under bombardment, earned medals for valor on 3 separate occasions. Then came peace, and with it a different variety of crisis. Accusations of financial impropriety and military contracting. The evidence was circumstantial, the accusations politically motivated, but Hammond could not function. He had trained his entire life for physical danger. Political danger found him utterly unprepared. Within 6 months, his career was destroyed, not by enemy shells, but by newspaper editorials and parliamentary questions. A man who had survived Passchendaele fell to gossip and innuendo. Why? Because he had fortified one wall while leaving others entirely undefended. He had trained for the crisis he expected, not for the condition of crisis itself. This is the fatal error of specific preparation. There are, broadly speaking, 3 categories of crisis that will strike you during your life: physical injury, illness, violence; material, financial loss, resource scarcity, economic disaster; reputational, public disgrace, relationship betrayal, status loss. Most people unconsciously prepare for only 1 or 2 categories while remaining dangerously vulnerable in the third. The soldier prepares for physical danger. The businessman prepares for financial setback. The politician prepares for reputational attack. Each believes he is prepared for crisis. Each is prepared only for his specific variety of crisis. The winner must develop what I call crisis-agnostic capacity. This means building mental flexibility, emotional resilience, and decision-making capability that functions regardless of whether the threat comes from bombs, bankruptcy, betrayal, or disease. Specific preparation is necessary, but insufficient. General capacity is essential. Consider the athlete who cross-trains. He does not merely run. He also swims, lifts weights, practices flexibility. Why? Because comprehensive fitness requires diverse training. The same principle applies to crisis preparation. If you are financially secure, deliberately practice navigating reputational challenges. If you are socially confident, deliberately practice managing resource scarcity. The goal is not mastery of every domain, but functional capacity across domains. Underneath all specific crisis skills lie general capacities that transfer across every variety: clear thinking under pressure, emotional regulation without suppression, decision-making with incomplete information, sustained will despite setbacks. These are the fundamental capacities. Develop them, and you can face any crisis. Neglect them, and you will be like poor Hammond, strong in one arena, defenseless in another. Within the next month, identify your weakest crisis category: physical, material, or reputational. Then deliberately expose yourself to a small, controlled challenge in that category. If you have never faced financial pressure, try living on half your income for 2 weeks. If you have never experienced public criticism, share a controversial opinion in a semi-public forum. If you have avoided physical discomfort, begin a demanding exercise regimen. The goal is not the challenge itself, but developing your response mechanism. Can you think clearly when uncomfortable? Can you maintain composure when criticized? Can you adapt when resources constrain? These general capacities, once developed, transfer to actual crises when they arrive. They are portable skills. They travel with you across every domain of life. You will no longer confuse specific competence with general capacity. When someone says, "I can handle anything," You will recognize whether they mean I have faced diverse crises and developed transferable capacity, or merely I have succeeded in my specific domain and assume it transfers. The first man is prepared. The second is dangerously deluded. Your preparation must become comprehensive rather than narrow, adaptable rather than rigid. This is not paranoia. This is wisdom. Why winners suffer more, not less. The most dangerous myth about crisis is that winners avoid suffering. This is catastrophically wrong. I have never known a great triumph that was not purchased with great suffering. The winner is not the man who avoids blows. He is the man who can absorb blow after blow while continuing to advance. After Gallipoli, when my name became synonymous with failure, when friends crossed the street rather than speak to me, when dinner invitations ceased and colleagues avoided my company, I learned what true crisis feels like. Not the crisis of enemy shells, which I had known in South Africa, and which is at least honest and direct, but the crisis of public disgrace, which cuts far deeper than any bullet. The whispers, the pitying glances, the knowledge that men who once sought your counsel now consider you finished. This is suffering of a different order entirely. The winner does not suffer less. He suffers differently. He has developed what I call suffering capacity, the ability to endure pain without breaking, to function while wounded, to think clearly despite anguish. Consider the pilots during the Battle of Britain. They flew multiple sorties daily, watching friends die in flames, knowing death was statistically likely. They were not immune to fear or grief. They felt both intensely. But they had developed the capacity to feel terror while still climbing back into their aircraft. They had learned to grieve fallen comrades while immediately planning the next mission. This was not callousness. It was cultivated capacity. Meanwhile, civilians in London endured nightly bombing with similar capacity. They felt fear, experienced loss, knew anguish, but they reported to work the next morning. They suffered and functioned simultaneously. This is the winner's way. Not suffering less, but suffering without breaking. There is suffering that destroys, and suffering that strengthens. The difference lies not in the suffering's intensity, but in your relationship to it. Suffering that destroys is suffering you resist, deny, or believe should not be happening. Suffering that strengthens is suffering you acknowledge, accept as the price of something valuable, and integrate into your capacity. The winner transforms suffering from enemy to teacher. Just as you budget financial resources, you must budget suffering capacity. Every worthy goal has a suffering cost. Career advancement costs time with family. Physical fitness costs discomfort and exhaustion. Meaningful relationships cost vulnerability and potential heartbreak. Most people unconsciously try to minimize all suffering. The winner consciously allocates suffering toward chosen goals. He pays the price willingly because he values what the price purchases. The next time you experience setback, professional failure, relationship conflict, physical injury, practice this sequence. First, acknowledge the pain explicitly. This hurts. I am suffering. No denial, no minimization. Second, accept it as cost. This is the price of pursuing my goal. I willingly pay it. Third, refocus immediately. Given this reality, what is my next action? This is not suppression. It is integration. You feel everything and act anyway. When someone offers sympathy, respond not with denial, but with honest acknowledgement and forward focus. Yes, this is difficult, and I am handling it because the goal matters. This models suffering capacity for others while reinforcing it in yourself. You neither minimize your pain nor let it control you. Do not romanticize suffering. The point is not to seek unnecessary pain or wear suffering as a badge of honor. Masochism is not capacity, but suffering in service of worthy goals is meaningful and transformative. The winner distinguishes between productive and unproductive suffering, accepting the first while eliminating the second. Wisdom lies in discernment, not blanket acceptance or blanket rejection. You will stop expecting victory to be painless. When ambitious goals require sacrifice, you will not interpret this as evidence that you are doing it wrong. You will understand that suffering is often the confirmation that you are doing it right, that you are attempting something difficult enough to matter. You will develop what observers call resilience, but is actually just honest acknowledgement that meaningful achievement requires meaningful cost, and you are willing to pay it. This is not tragic. This is simply true. The practice of double vision. The foundational skill of crisis thinking is what I call double vision. One part of your mind experiences the crisis fully while another part observes coldly and analyzes options. This is not dissociation or emotional suppression. It is deliberate attention splitting. Like a military commander who must simultaneously feel the chaos of battle and maintain strategic perspective, you train yourself to hold two simultaneous states, participant and observer. Before my first speech in Parliament, I felt terror. My hands shook. My throat constricted. I could barely breathe. The anxiety was physical, overwhelming, nearly incapacitating. But I had trained myself in double vision. One part of me experienced the terror fully, felt the racing heart, the cold sweat, the desire to flee. Another part observed clinically. You are experiencing fear. This is normal. Your body is preparing for perceived danger. Now, what are the facts? The facts were these. I had prepared the speech thoroughly. I knew the material. The members would listen regardless of my nervousness. The terror, while real, was not accurate intelligence about actual danger. It was merely my body's response to novelty and exposure. You will proceed, the observer voice concluded. And I did. The terror did not vanish, but it ceased to control me. I spoke. This is double vision. Most people, when crisis strikes, become entirely consumed by it. They are the crisis. The winner stands slightly apart from the crisis while still engaging it fully. This creates psychological space in which effective thought becomes possible. Without this space, you simply react. With it, you respond deliberately. You must develop an internal voice that narrates your emotional experience without judgment. Not "I shouldn't be afraid," but "I notice I am afraid." How interesting. This creates the crucial separation between experiencing emotion and being consumed by it. Practice this during small stresses first. Traffic jams, minor frustrations, disagreements with colleagues, until it becomes automatic during actual crises. When crisis strikes and emotion threatens to overwhelm, anchor yourself with a physical action. Place both feet flat on the ground, press your hands together, take 3 deep breaths. This momentary physical focus gives your observer voice space to emerge. The question shifts from "what do I feel?" to "what am I doing with my hands?" Then the observer can think. Train yourself to hold 2 thoughts simultaneously. This is terrible and I am thinking about it. Not this is terrible, therefore I cannot think, but this is terrible and I am thinking anyway. The conjunction and rather than but or therefore is crucial. It allows both truths to coexist rather than canceling each other. The next time you feel strong emotion, anger, fear, joy, grief, practice double vision. Say aloud or think clearly, "I am experiencing anger. I notice my jaw clenching. I observe my breath quickening." Then add, "and I am thinking about my next action." This linguistic formula trains the split attention. During your morning routine, deliberately practice splitting attention. While making tea or coffee, maintain awareness of both the physical actions, pouring, stirring, and your mental state, tired, alert. This trains the mind to hold multiple awareness streams simultaneously. When crisis arrives, this trained capacity activates automatically. You will feel the crisis fully while simultaneously analyzing it. Double vision is not emotional detachment or numbness. If you find yourself feeling nothing, you have gone too far. You have suppressed rather than observed. The goal is simultaneous full feeling and clear thinking, not reduced feeling. Also, do not attempt double vision for the first time during major crisis. Like any skill, it requires practice during lower-stakes situations first. You will discover that you can feel intensely while thinking clearly. These are not mutually exclusive states. When crisis strikes, you will notice yourself automatically activating double vision. One part experiencing, one part observing. This removes the paralysis that comes from being wholly consumed by emotion. Your colleagues will remark on your calmness under pressure. You will know it is not calmness but practiced attention splitting. You feel everything, and you think anyway. This is the beginning of mastery. From being emotion to having emotion. Most people, when emotion arises, identify completely with it. They do not think, "I am experiencing anger." They think, "I am angry." This identification is the source of most poor decision-making under pressure. The winner makes a subtle but transformative shift from being emotion to having emotion. During the bombing of London, I walked through devastated neighborhoods daily. The grief and rage I felt were intense. These were my people, their homes destroyed, families killed, lives shattered. The emotion was not abstract. It was visceral, immediate, overwhelming. But I practiced a crucial distinction. I have grief. I have rage. Now, what do? This was not callousness. I felt everything. But I did not become the grief or rage. I remained Churchill, who happened to be experiencing grief and rage, and who therefore could still think, still plan, still lead. The emotion remained present, but it no longer controlled my actions. This is the shift from being emotion to having emotion. You observe, I am afraid. How interesting. Now, what are the facts? This is not suppression. You acknowledge the fear fully, but you do not let it define you. Fear is something you have, like having a cold or having blue eyes. It is a temporary state, not your identity. This simple linguistic and conceptual shift creates the space in which rational thought becomes possible despite intense feeling. Replace I am angry with I am experiencing anger, or I have anger. This sounds minor but changes everything. I am terrified suggests terror defines you. I have fear suggests fear is something you contain but are not identical to. Practice this shift in daily speech until it becomes automatic. Think of emotions as weather. They arise, they pass, but you are not the weather. You are the observer of weather. A storm does not make the observer cease to exist. It simply means the observer is currently experiencing a storm. This metaphor makes the abstract concept visceral and actionable. Recognize that you are composed of multiple aspects: emotional self, rational self, physical self, relational self. When one aspect is in crisis, emotional self experiencing terror, the other aspects remain functional. Rational self can still analyze. Physical self can still act. You are not any single aspect. You are the integration of all aspects. This prevents total collapse when one domain is overwhelmed. When emotion arises, follow this sequence. First, name it explicitly. I have fear. Second, accept it without judgment. This is natural. Third, act despite it. I proceed anyway. The emotion continues, but so do you. This is the acknowledge and proceed protocol. Throughout today, every time you feel emotion, practice the linguistic shift. Do not think or say, I'm frustrated. Instead, I'm experiencing frustration. Not I'm excited, but I have excitement. This creates subtle distance without eliminating the feeling. The emotion remains fully present. Your relationship to it changes. When facing difficulty, complete this sentence aloud. I have anxiety about this presentation, and I am delivering it anyway. The conjunction and is crucial. It allows both truths simultaneously. You are not denying the anxiety or pretending it does not exist. You are simply refusing to let it determine your actions. This practice can slide into emotional avoidance if misapplied. The goal is not less feeling, but more agency while feeling. You should feel emotions as intensely as before, possibly more intensely since you are not using energy to suppress them. The difference is that feeling no longer eliminates thinking. You feel and think, both simultaneously, without one canceling the other. Emotions will no longer hijack your decision-making. You will feel fear fully while advancing anyway. You will experience grief while maintaining functionality. You will have rage without letting it control your actions. Others will wonder how you remain rational during crisis. You will know you are not less emotional. You have simply trained yourself to feel and think simultaneously. The emotions remain powerful. You remain more powerful than they are. This is the second great transformation in the winner's architecture. The art of deciding when nothing is certain crisis is fundamentally a problem of decision-making under uncertainty, with insufficient information and compressed time. You never have all the facts you want. The intelligence is always incomplete, contradictory, arriving late or not at all. The situation is always more complex than any briefing can capture. If you wait for perfect information, you will never act. But if you act without thinking, you compound difficulties catastrophically. At Waterloo, Wellington made dozens of crucial decisions with incomplete information. He could not see the entire battlefield. Reports arrived late, and contradictory. The fog of war was literal and metaphorical. Smoke from cannons obscured vision while confusion obscured understanding. Yet he decided when to reinforce this position, when to withdraw from that one, when to commit his precious reserves. Many decisions proved suboptimal in hindsight, but they were adequate and prompt. Napoleon, by contrast, delayed several crucial decisions awaiting better information. His delays cost him the battle. Wellington won not through superior information, but through superior decision-making with inferior information. This is the winner's art, the ability to make sound decisions with insufficient information while under extreme pressure. This is not a talent you are born with. It is a skill developed through deliberate practice, specifically through rehearsing catastrophic scenarios mentally until decision-making under pressure becomes familiar rather than foreign. The goal is not perfect decisions. Those are impossible when information is incomplete and time is compressed. The goal is adequate decisions made promptly, which surpass perfect decisions made too late. I learned what I call the 70% rule during years of military and political crisis. If you have 70% of the information you want and 70% confidence in your analysis, decide. Waiting for 90% certainty means the decision point has passed. This requires accepting profound discomfort. You will often decide while uncertain. Practice making low-stakes decisions at 70% confidence until the discomfort becomes tolerable, then familiar, then unremarkable. Before deciding, conduct what I call the reversibility assessment. Ask yourself, if this proves wrong, can I reverse it or adapt? Reservable decisions require less certainty than irreversible ones. This allows faster decision-making in appropriate circumstances, while maintaining appropriate caution for permanent choices. A military deployment can be reversed. A treaty signed cannot. Understand the difference and calibrate your certainty requirements accordingly. Regularly imagine yourself in crisis scenarios, not to anxiously worry, but to practice decision-making.
If my nation faced invasion tomorrow, what would I do? Decide now.
This mental practice creates pattern recognition. When actual crisis comes, your brain recognizes the pattern and accesses prepared responses faster. You are not encountering the decision type for the first time while under pressure. You are executing a decision process you have practiced mentally dozens of times. Consider not just the decision's immediate consequence, but the consequence of that consequence. If I do X, then Y happens. If Y happens, then Z becomes possible. This second-order thinking improves decision quality without requiring perfect information about the initial choice. You are thinking 2 moves ahead, like a chess player, which compensates for incomplete information about the current position. When uncertain, bias toward action over inaction. Inaction feels safe but is often the highest risk choice because it guarantees deterioration while you wait for better information that may never arrive. Action, even suboptimal action, generates new information and maintains momentum. You learn by doing. You cannot learn by waiting. The next time you face a decision with incomplete information, explicitly apply the 70% rule. Do I have 70% confidence? If yes, decide. If no, identify what specific information would raise confidence to 70% and determine if acquiring that information is worth the delay. Usually it is not. You will become comfortable making important decisions while uncertain. The paralysis of, "I need more information," will disappear. You will decide quickly, implement decisively, and adapt readily when necessary. Others will marvel at your decisiveness. You will know it is not confidence in being right, it is confidence in your ability to decide with incomplete information, implement effectively, and adapt if wrong. This is mastery of decision under uncertainty. Expecting the storm and collapsing time. 2 transformations arrive together and must be understood as connected. First, you must internalize that multiple unexpected crises will strike you. This is not pessimism, it is preparation. The man who expects smooth sailing is destroyed by the first storm. Mental preparation removes paralysis because when crisis strikes, you think, "This is what I prepared for," rather than, "Why is this happening?" Each morning during 1940, before attending to any other business, I asked myself a simple question. What is the worst thing that could happen today? Invasion? Bombing? France's surrender? Assassination? Mutiny? I mentally rehearsed responses to each scenario. This took perhaps 5 minutes. When German bombers came, when France fell, when assassination plots were discovered, I did not stand frozen thinking, this is impossible. I thought, Scenario 7, and immediately executed the plan I had mentally prepared weeks earlier. This 5-minute morning investment created hours of advantage during actual crisis. Preparation removed paralysis. While others stood shocked, asking why and how, I was already 3 steps into implementation. This is not because I possessed superior courage or intelligence. It is because I had already thought through the scenario when I was calm. When crisis arrived, I accessed prepared responses rather than improvising under pressure. The second transformation connects directly to the first. In crisis, time compresses brutally. You have hours to make decisions deserving weeks. Most men fail here, attempting peacetime deliberation in wartime conditions. By the time they reach a conclusion through their normal deliberative process, the enemy has moved 3 steps ahead. The decision point has passed. Their careful analysis is now analyzing yesterday's situation. The winner develops what I call compressed deliberation, deciding quickly with incomplete information, trusting judgment built through preparation. He knows that a good decision made promptly is worth far more than a perfect decision made too late. This is not recklessness. It is sophisticated understanding that time itself becomes a factor in decision quality during crisis. These 2 transformations connect thus. Because you expect crisis and have mentally rehearsed responses, you can compress deliberation time without sacrificing quality. You are not thinking through the problem for the first time while under pressure. You are recognizing a pattern you have already analyzed. This pattern recognition enables rapid decision-making that appears almost instinctive but is actually prepared. Each morning before checking messages, spend 5 minutes asking, what is the worst realistic thing that could happen today? Note, realistic, not catastrophic fantasy. Then, if this occurs, what is my immediate response? This creates mental contingency plans. When disaster strikes, you access prepared responses rather than improvising under pressure. 1 scenario per morning. 5 minutes. This discipline transforms crisis response entirely. When crisis demands decision, use this protocol. First, state the decision required in 1 sentence. Second, list 3 options, no more, no fewer. Third, for each option, identify best case and worst case outcome. Fourth, choose the option with the best worst case outcome. This is crucial. Fifth, decide within 30 minutes maximum regardless of the decision's apparent importance. Practice this during non-crisis decisions until it becomes automatic. Deliberately practice making decisions under artificial time pressure. Give yourself 10 minutes to solve a problem that could take 2 hours. The quality will decrease slightly, but you will train yourself to think quickly. This is mental conditioning. Like a runner who trains at altitude, when you return to normal conditions, your performance improves. Crisis will no longer catch you psychologically unprepared. When disaster strikes, you will not waste precious time in shocked paralysis asking how this happened. You will immediately think, this is a crisis. I expected crisis. Now I respond. Additionally, you will make decisions rapidly that once would have required extended deliberation. Your colleagues will assume this decisiveness reflects superior confidence. It actually reflects superior preparation. You have already thought through possibilities they are encountering for the first time. This is the transformation from reactive to proactive crisis management. The terrible arithmetic and the loyalty test. 2 brutal truths arrive together, and both must be confronted directly. First, crisis will cost you. It will demand sacrifices that seem unbearable: sleep, health, friendships, wealth, peace of mind, perhaps more. The temptation is to calculate, if I pay this price, will I definitely succeed? The answer is always, you may pay everything and still fail. This is the terrible arithmetic of crisis, where most men quit. Gallipoli consumed resources, careers, lives, and failed catastrophically. I paid with my reputation, my position, years of my career. Friends abandoned me. Dinner invitations ceased. My political future appeared finished. The question afterward was not, should I have risked less? That ship had sailed. The question was, having risked everything and failed, can I risk again? Many men, having paid such a price and received nothing, never recover. They become cautious, withholding, bitter. Every subsequent decision is haunted by the specter of previous loss. They cannot bring themselves to pay again, having paid once and received nothing. This is understandable. It is also fatal to future achievement. I chose differently. I risked again. Because refusing to risk guarantees irrelevance, the choice is not pay the price and definitely win versus preserve what you have. The choice is pay the price and possibly win versus refuse to pay and certainly lose. When you understand this, when you truly accept it, your hesitation vanishes. You pay the price because it is the only rational choice, regardless of outcome. Before pursuing any worthy goal, explicitly list what it will cost you. Not vague, it will be hard, but specific, this will cost me 20 hours per week, 10,000 pounds, and strain on my marriage. Then decide, is the goal worth this cost, even if I fail? If yes, pay willingly. If no, abandon the goal now. This clarity eliminates later resentment when the bill comes due. You will become comfortable making important decisions while uncertain. The paralysis of, I need more information, will disappear. You will decide quickly, implement decisively, and adapt readily when necessary. Others will marvel at your decisiveness. You will know it is not confidence in being right, it is confidence in your ability to decide with incomplete information, implement effectively, and adapt if wrong. This is mastery of decision under uncertainty. Expecting the storm and collapsing time. Two transformations arrive together and must be understood as connected. First, you must internalize that multiple unexpected crises will strike you. This is not pessimism, it is preparation. The man who expects smooth sailing is destroyed by the first storm. Mental preparation removes paralysis because when crisis strikes, you think, this is what I prepared for, rather than, why is this happening? Each morning during 1940, before attending to any other business, I asked myself a simple question. What is the worst thing that could happen today? Invasion? Bombing? France's surrender? Assassination? Mutiny? I mentally rehearsed responses to each scenario. This took perhaps 5 minutes. When German bombers came, when France fell, when assassination plots were discovered, I did not stand frozen thinking, this is impossible. I thought, scenario 7, and immediately executed the plan I had mentally prepared weeks earlier. This 5-minute morning investment created hours of advantage during actual crisis. Preparation removed paralysis. While others stood shocked, asking why and how, I was already 3 steps into implementation. This is not because I possessed superior courage or intelligence. It is because I had already thought through the scenario when I was calm. When crisis arrived, I accessed prepared responses rather than improvising under pressure. The second transformation connects directly to the first. In crisis, time compresses brutally. You have hours to make decisions deserving weeks. Most men fail here, attempting peacetime deliberation in wartime conditions. By the time they reach a conclusion through their normal deliberative process, the enemy has moved 3 steps ahead. The decision point has passed. Their careful analysis is now analyzing yesterday's situation. The winner develops what I call compressed deliberation, deciding quickly with incomplete information, trusting judgment built through preparation. He knows that a good decision made promptly is worth far more than a perfect decision made too late. This is not recklessness. It is sophisticated understanding that time itself becomes a factor in decision quality during crisis. These 2 transformations connect thus. Because you expect crisis and have mentally rehearsed responses, you can compress deliberation time without sacrificing quality. You are not thinking through the problem for the first time while under pressure. You are recognizing a pattern you have already analyzed. This pattern recognition enables rapid decision-making that appears almost instinctive but is actually prepared. Each morning before checking messages, spend 5 minutes asking, what is the worst realistic thing that could happen today? Note, realistic, not catastrophic fantasy. Then, if this occurs, what is my immediate response? This creates mental contingency plans. When disaster strikes, you access prepared responses rather than improvising under pressure. 1 scenario per morning. 5 minutes. This discipline transforms crisis response entirely. When crisis demands decision, use this protocol. First, state the decision required in 1 sentence. Second, list 3 options, no more, no fewer. Third, for each option, identify best case and worst case outcome. Fourth, choose the option with the best worst case outcome. This is crucial. Fifth, Decide within 30 minutes maximum regardless of the decision's apparent importance. Practice this during non-crisis decisions until it becomes automatic. Deliberately practice making decisions under artificial time pressure. Give yourself 10 minutes to solve a problem that could take 2 hours. The quality will decrease slightly, but you will train yourself to think quickly. This is mental conditioning. Like a runner who trains at altitude, when you return to normal conditions, your performance improves. Crisis will no longer catch you psychologically unprepared. When disaster strikes, you will not waste precious time in shocked paralysis asking how this happened. You will immediately think, "This is a crisis. I expected crisis. Now I respond." Additionally, you will make decisions rapidly that once would have required extended deliberation. Your colleagues will assume this decisiveness reflects superior confidence. It actually reflects superior preparation. You have already thought through possibilities they are encountering for the first time. This is the transformation from reactive to proactive crisis management. The terrible arithmetic and the loyalty test. Two brutal truths arrive together, and both must be confronted directly. First, crisis will cost you. It will demand sacrifices that seem unbearable: sleep, health, friendships, wealth, peace of mind, perhaps more. The temptation is to calculate, if I pay this price, will I definitely succeed? The answer is always, you may pay everything and still fail. This is the terrible arithmetic of crisis, where most men quit. Gallipoli consumed resources, careers, lives, and failed catastrophically. I paid with my reputation, my position, years of my career. Friends abandoned me. Dinner invitations ceased. My political future appeared finished. The question afterward was not, should I have risked less? That ship had sailed. The question was, having risked everything and failed, can I risk again? Many men, having paid such a price and received nothing, never recover. They become cautious, withholding, bitter. Every subsequent decision is haunted by the specter of previous loss. They cannot bring themselves to pay again, having paid once and received nothing. This is understandable. It is also fatal to future achievement. I chose differently. I risked again. Because refusing to risk guarantees irrelevance, the choice is not pay the price and definitely win versus preserve what you have. The choice is pay the price and possibly win versus refuse to pay and certainly lose. When you understand this, when you truly accept it, your hesitation vanishes. You pay the price because it is the only rational choice, regardless of outcome. Before pursuing any worthy goal, explicitly list what it will cost you. Not vague, it will be hard, but specific, this will cost me 20 hours per week, 10,000 pounds, and strain on my marriage. Then decide, is the goal worth this cost, even if I fail? If yes, pay willingly. If no, abandon the goal now. This clarity eliminates later resentment when the bill comes due. The second brutal truth arrives simultaneously. Crisis reveals true allies. Men you thought steadfast will waver. Colleagues will desert you. Some will actively work against you. This is not betrayal in the conventional sense. It is simply that crisis reveals true character, and many men lack the steel you need. You must learn to accomplish with depleted forces what you hope to achieve with many. I have won battles with reduced resources by recognizing this early and planning accordingly. When crisis struck and allies departed, I did not waste energy trying to convince wavering allies to stay or lamenting their departure. I quickly identified the 3 to 5 people who remained steadfast and maximized coordination with them. Accomplish with 5 loyal allies what you hope to achieve with 20 fair-weather friends. Crisis is the definitive loyalty test. Those who stand with you in darkness have proven themselves in ways prosperity never could. Afterward, these bonds are unbreakable. I have friendships forged in the trenches of Flanders that lasted half a century. Shared adversity creates depth of connection that prosperity never can. This makes crisis, while painful, also the forge of genuine relationships. When crisis strikes and allies depart, give yourself exactly 24 hours to feel betrayal. Feel it fully. Then complete what I call the ally triage. Identify who remains, maximize coordination with them, and cease concerning yourself with those who left. They have revealed themselves. Your energy is limited. Focus it on reliable allies. Once you have paid, you have paid. The question becomes, given that I have already paid X, should I pay more to attempt Y? Not, can I recover X? You cannot. This removes the psychological trap of throwing good money after bad, while also removing the paralysis of, I've already invested so much. You will enter commitments clear-eyed about costs, prepared to pay them regardless of outcome. When sacrifice is required, you will not feel cheated. You knew this was the price. When allies depart, you will not waste time lamenting, but will immediately maximize coordination with those who remain. You will understand that crisis is both terrible and clarifying. It costs you much, but it also reveals who truly stands with you. This knowledge, while painful, is valuable. Most men never learn who their true allies are until it is too late. Crisis teaches you early. Strategic optimism and failure as information to final transformations complete your capacity for crisis thinking. First, you must develop strategic optimism, entirely different from foolish optimism. Foolish optimism says, everything will work out. Strategic optimism says, I can find a way to make this work, and I will search until I find it. One is passive hope. The other is active will. In 1940, foolish optimism would have said, Hitler probably will not invade. Strategic optimism said, Hitler will certainly try, and we shall certainly stop him, and here are 8 different plans for how. See the difference? Foolish optimism waits for circumstances to improve. Strategic optimism creates circumstances. Foolish optimism hopes. Strategic optimism commits. This form of optimism is not a feeling. It is a decision. You decide that you will find a solution, and then you dedicate every resource of your mind to finding it. When attempts 1 through 5 fail, you immediately pivot to attempt 6, rather than concluding the goal is impossible. This requires acknowledging difficulty fully while refusing to accept impossibility. The situation is difficult, therefore I must find a creative solution. Not therefore it cannot be done. For any important goal, identify at least 3 completely different approaches to achieving it. If the direct path fails, try the indirect path. If force fails, try persuasion. If persuasion fails, try time. Having multiple pathways prevents the paralysis of, there's only one way and it didn't work. There are always multiple ways. Your task is finding them. The second transformation addresses your relationship with failure. You will fail repeatedly. Your plans will miscarry, your judgment will be wrong, your best efforts will produce disaster. The question is not whether you will fail, but what you will do after failure. The loser sees failure as verdict. The winner sees failure as information. After Gallipoli, I could have concluded, I am incompetent at military strategy, failure as verdict. Instead, I analyzed, amphibious assault requires overwhelming force and complete surprise. We had neither. The approach was wrong, not my capability. This framing, failure as information rather than judgment, enabled me to learn without being destroyed by the learning process. 20 years later, facing invasion, I applied lessons learned through expensive education. The failure was tuition. I paid through disgrace. But I learned the lessons. After every setback, spend exactly 30 minutes answering these questions. What did I attempt? What was the result? Why did this result occur? What does this tell me about reality? What will I try next? This transforms failure from identity judgment into data collection. You are not a failure. You discovered that approach X does not work in circumstance Y. This is valuable information. Measure success not by win-loss ratio, but by iteration speed. How quickly can you attempt a new approach after the previous one fails? Winners iterate faster, meaning they reach effective approaches sooner, even if they fail more frequently initially. The man who attempts 1 approach per month will require months to find what works. The man who attempts 3 approaches per week will find what works within weeks. Both may fail equally often. One succeeds because he fails faster. For your current most important goal, identify 3 completely different pathways to achieving it. This seems like extra work until a pathway fails and you immediately have alternatives rather than facing paralysis. When colleagues express pessimism, this will never work, practice strategic optimism aloud. Perhaps not this way. But there are 6 other approaches we have not tried. Let us examine the next one. Strategic optimism is not denial. If every approach has failed and no new approaches are visible, strategic optimism says, I cannot currently see how to make this work, but I will continue searching for new information or wait for circumstances to change. It does not say, "This is definitely solvable right now." Distinguish between realistic persistence and delusional stubbornness. Setbacks will no longer destroy your forward momentum. When an approach fails, you will immediately pivot to the next approach rather than questioning whether success is possible. You will accumulate wisdom through failure without accumulating bitterness. Others will marvel at your persistence. You will know it is not stubbornness or denial, it is simply commitment to finding a way combined with treating each failure as data rather than destiny. This makes you nearly unstoppable, not because you never fail, but because failure never stops you. The 5-minute morning ritual that changes everything before attending to any other business each morning. The winner spends exactly 5 minutes on a specific ritual. This seems trivial, just 5 minutes, but it creates extraordinary advantage. The ritual has 3 components, each essential. First, ask yourself, what is the worst realistic thing that could happen today? Not catastrophic fantasy, but realistic difficulty. Difficult conversation? Project setback? Unexpected expense? Conflict with colleague? Identify 2 to 3 scenarios. Second, for each possibility, identify your immediate response. Complete this sentence. If this happens, I will immediately take this action. Be specific. Not, I will handle it, but I will call these 3 people, implement this contingency plan, and adjust these priorities. Concrete actions, not vague intentions. Third, if you have ongoing crises, review their current status. What happened yesterday? What must I do today? What am I waiting for? This prevents the paralysis of avoiding difficult situations. By reviewing daily, you maintain clear understanding without being consumed by crisis between your morning reviews. I watched a colleague, we shall call him Harrison, destroyed in parliamentary debate. He was brilliant, knowledgeable, capable, yet he appeared foolish when questioned. Why? Because he encountered each attack for the first time during the debate itself. Meanwhile, I had spent the previous evening listing every possible criticism of my position and preparing responses. During the debate, when attacks came, I appeared to respond spontaneously with devastating wit. The truth was simpler. I was executing prepared responses. My superior performance reflected superior preparation, not superior intelligence. This principle applies to all crisis thinking. What appears as quick wit or superior judgment is usually just better preparation executed under pressure. Before any important meeting or decision, spend 10 minutes listing possible criticisms someone might level. For each criticism, prepare a 1-sentence response. This transforms you from reactive defender to prepared responder. Your opponent spends days preparing their attack. You spend 30 minutes preparing your defense. You are now equally prepared, and because you prepared calmly rather than under attack, your defense may actually be superior. This morning ritual will feel strange at first. You are manufacturing problems before they exist, but after several weeks, you will notice something remarkable. When problems actually arise, you respond faster and more effectively. The morning ritual removes surprise, which removes paralysis. You are not encountering the problem for the first time while emotional. You are executing a response you formulated while calm. Tomorrow morning, before checking messages or beginning work, set a timer for exactly 5 minutes. Write down 3 worst-case scenarios that might occur today and your immediate response to each. If you have ongoing crises, note their status and what you will do today. This will seem artificial initially. Persist. After 30 consecutive days, it becomes automatic. After 60 days, you cannot imagine operating without it. Do not let the morning ritual devolve into anxious rumination. If you find yourself spending 30 minutes catastrophizing, you have missed the point. The ritual is preparation, not worry. It should leave you feeling prepared and calm, not anxious and overwhelmed.
5 minutes maximum.
Brief scenario identification. Immediate response planning. Status review if applicable. Then proceed with your day. Also, resist the temptation to prepare for infinitely detailed scenarios. Broad preparation for general categories, difficult conversation, project setback, unexpected expense, is more useful than specific preparation for unlikely exact scenarios. The goal is pattern recognition, not prophecy. You cannot predict exactly what will happen. You can prepare your mind to respond rapidly to categories of difficulty. You will notice yourself responding to problems before others have finished reacting. When crisis strikes in a meeting, you will have a response ready while colleagues are still processing shock. This is not because you are smarter, it is because you have practiced crisis thinking daily. The morning ritual transforms abstract preparation into concrete advantage. What once seemed like paranoia will reveal itself as precisely the practice that enables confident action under pressure. Morning preparation creates individual readiness, but crisis rarely happens in isolation. You must coordinate with others, manage multiple domains simultaneously, and maintain functionality across extended time. The practices that follow address strategic communication, compartmentalization, and how to protect your capacity while managing prolonged crisis. These complete the operational toolkit of the winner in action. Strategic communication and the art of compartmentalization, two essential practices, sustain the man who must endure crisis not for days, but for months or years. The discipline of strategic communication and the art of compartmentalization. Without these capacities, the ablest leader will exhaust himself within weeks, and what began as vigorous response will deteriorate into mere survival. I learned both practices through necessity, and I tell you now they are not luxuries of temperament, but requirements of sustained effectiveness. Consider first the matter of communication. When catastrophe strikes, the untrained instinct is to isolate oneself, to believe that the problem must be solved alone before others are informed. This is error of the gravest kind. The winner communicates constantly, not indiscriminately, broadcasting panic to every ear, but strategically, maintaining counsel with 3 to 5 trusted advisors whose judgment has been tested under pressure. Throughout the darkest days of the war, I maintained constant communication with Roosevelt across the Atlantic, not because I lacked confidence in my own judgment, but because my judgment improved through contact with his different perspective. The wise man tests his thinking against other minds. He does not outsource his decisions, but he stress tests them. During those years, colleagues wondered how I could spend afternoons painting whilst Britain faced invasion. They considered it frivolous. We were fighting for national survival, and I was playing with oils and brushes. But I knew something they did not grasp. Crisis is marathon, not sprint. The man who devotes every waking hour to catastrophe burns out within months and becomes useless precisely when endurance matters most. By protecting certain domains of my life through painting, through conversation at table, through the rhythms of Chartwell, I preserved capacity to lead for years rather than collapsing after weeks. This is what I mean by compartmentalization. It is not escape from duty, it is preservation of capacity for sustained duty. You must identify your own trust circle, those few persons whose judgment you respect and who will tell you difficult truths rather than comfortable flattery. Establish how you will communicate during crisis before the crisis arrives. Then, with equal deliberation, designate certain domains, times, or activities as crisis-free zones. Perhaps it is the family dinner hour. Perhaps it is morning exercise or Sunday afternoons. During these protected periods, you deliberately focus elsewhere. This is not denial. You will return to the crisis afterward, but strategic protection of your capacity for sustained performance. The great temptation is to work 18-hour days indefinitely, believing that more hours mean more progress. This is sprint thinking applied to marathon conditions. It produces collapse, not victory. When one domain of your life is in crisis, your career perhaps, or your health, explicitly protect the other domains. Business collapsing? Preserve family stability with deliberate attention. Political career under assault? Maintain physical exercise with sacred consistency. You cannot fight effectively on all fronts simultaneously. The general who attempts this loses everywhere. Choose your battleground and protect your reserves. Strategic communication ensures you do not face crisis alone and that your judgment benefits from diverse perspective. Compartmentalization ensures you can sustain high performance for months or years rather than burning brightly for weeks and then flickering out. Together, these practices transform crisis from catastrophic sprint into manageable marathon. Others will wonder how you maintain what they call balance during chaos. You will know it is not balance at all, but strategic protection, preserving some domains precisely so you can give everything to others. This is how winners endure. Information warfare and tactical rest 2 final practices complete the winner's operational capacity, and without them all previous preparation comes to nothing. the discipline of evaluating information, and the necessity of tactical rest. These are the practices that separate the leader who merely survives crisis from the leader who navigates it with sustained effectiveness. During crisis, you will be flooded with reports, opinions, intelligence, rumors, much of it wrong, contradictory, or deliberately misleading. After Dunkirk, reports poured into my offices with wildly contradictory accounts. How many men had we evacuated? What equipment was lost? Was the evacuation victory or defeat? I could have accepted the first optimistic report or dismissed everything as unreliable. Instead, I evaluated each piece of intelligence with clinical detachment. Who observed this directly, and who is merely reporting what others claimed to see? What position was the observer in to know accurately? What incentive might the source have to distort? Career preservation, avoidance of blame, the seeking of advantage? This is information warfare, treating intelligence as data requiring verification rather than truth requiring belief. The greatest danger in crisis is not external attack, but self-delusion through selective attention. We notice information that confirms what we already believe and dismiss evidence that contradicts it. The disciplined leader actively seeks information that might prove his assumptions wrong. He maintains what I call the assumption audit, regularly listing what he believes to be true about the crisis and then deliberately seeking evidence to the contrary. When reports conflict, he does not accept the most comforting version. He triangulates, identifying what all sources agree upon and investigating where they diverge. Truth emerges through this process of rigorous verification, not through wishful acceptance. Now consider the matter of rest. I maintained what observers called an eccentric schedule, working in bed until noon, napping in the afternoon, then working again until 2 or 3 in the morning. This seemed peculiar to those accustomed to conventional hours, but it preserved my energy when others collapsed from exhaustion. Rest is not weakness. Rest is tactical necessity. The man who believes he can operate indefinitely without restoration will discover, too late, that exhausted leaders make catastrophic decisions. Better to rest deliberately and think clearly than to work constantly and think poorly. Track your own energy cycles. When you think most sharply, when you fade, when you recover. Structure your crisis work around these natural rhythms rather than fighting against them. Handle complex decisions during peak mental clarity. Reserve routine matters for lower energy periods. Build restoration into your schedule as deliberately as you build work. If conventional hours exhaust you, design a schedule optimized for your particular capacity, regardless of what others consider normal. Some will interpret your rest as lack of commitment. They will question your seriousness whilst they work themselves into uselessness. Ignore them. They will burn out within months and become incapable of sustained contribution. You will persevere, not because you work harder, but because you work more wisely, preserving your capacity through tactical rest whilst they exhaust theirs through relentless but unsustainable effort. The goal is not to impress observers with your tirelessness, but to maintain effectiveness for the duration of the crisis, however long that may prove. Information discipline prevents manipulation and self-delusion. Tactical rest prevents exhaustion and poor judgment. Together with strategic communication and compartmentalization, these practices constitute the complete operational toolkit for sustained crisis management. You are now equipped to maintain high performance, not for days, but for years if necessary. What remains is to understand what crisis ultimately means, and that is the deepest teaching of all. Making peace with uncertainty, forever mastering crisis, transforms your relationship with uncertainty itself. And this transformation reaches deeper than any technique or practice we have yet considered. Most men view uncertainty as an enemy, something to be eliminated through more information, better planning, reduced risk. They believe that with sufficient preparation they can achieve certainty before acting. This is futile, for uncertainty is not an obstacle to be overcome, but the fundamental condition of human existence. In May 1940, facing imminent invasion, I possessed minimal certainty about anything that mattered most. Would America enter the war? I could not know. Could Britain hold against German might? Uncertain. Would the Soviet Union ally with us or continue its arrangement with Hitler? Unknown. Every major decision I made that year was made with less than half confidence in the outcome. Yet I acted decisively because I understood that acting with 40% confidence surpasses waiting for impossible 90% certainty. The invasion never came, but I could not have known it would not come. I simply decided and acted despite uncertainty because the alternative was paralysis, and paralysis guaranteed defeat regardless of what Germany chose to do. Certain questions cannot be answered in advance no matter how much information you gather. Will this venture succeed? Will this relationship endure? Will this treatment cure the illness? You can make probabilistic judgments, weigh evidence, consult experts, but fundamental uncertainty remains, irreducible and permanent. The man who requires certainty before acting will never act at all, for certainty never arrives. The winner makes peace with this reality. Instead of thinking in binary terms, success or failure, right or wrong, he thinks in probabilities. What is the likelihood this works, and what is my plan if it does not? This shift from demanding certainty to accepting probability enables action despite perpetual uncertainty. He imagines not one future but several, the optimistic outcome, the pessimistic outcome, the most likely outcome. For each, he identifies his response. This transforms vague anxiety about the unknown into concrete preparation for multiple possibilities. The next time you face uncertain decision, acknowledge the uncertainty explicitly, rather than pretending certainty you do not possess. Say to yourself, I cannot know how this will turn out. Then ask, given this uncertainty, what is my best judgment? Make the decision. Notice that acknowledging uncertainty does not prevent decision-making. It actually enables it by removing the impossible demand that you be certain first. You gather available information, you make sound assessment, and then you act. The discomfort of not knowing decreases substantially, not because you gain more certainty, but because you become comfortable operating without it. This acceptance is liberation, not resignation. Others will marvel at your decisiveness during crisis. They will assume you possess information or confidence they lack. You will know the truth. You possess not greater certainty, but greater acceptance that certainty is impossible and action is necessary regardless. The paralysis that grips those waiting for guaranteed outcomes will never touch you, because you have made peace with uncertainty forever. You have learned to swim in waters that others believe must be drained before they can enter. The true nature of power and what it means to lead crisis thinking reveals the true nature of power, and what it reveals contradicts most of what men believe about the subject. Power is not, as commonly supposed, the ability to control circumstances. Circumstances are often beyond any man's control. The weather, the economy, the decisions of enemies, the accidents of fortune. If power meant controlling these things, no one would possess power at all. True power is something quite different. The ability to maintain agency in the face of circumstances, to act, think, and choose when everything conspires to render you helpless. In my first speech as Prime Minister, I told the British people, I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. This was not inspiring rhetoric designed to comfort anxious listeners with pleasant falsehoods. It was brutal honesty about what lay ahead, yet they followed me precisely because they recognized truth. Had I promised easy victory and swift resolution, they would have trusted me less, sensing the deception. By acknowledging the depth of difficulty whilst promising we would prevail regardless, I demonstrated the only leadership that functions during actual crisis. Honest about cost, certain about commitment. Truth builds loyalty that comfortable lies can never create. This understanding transforms how you lead others, whether in family, in enterprise, or in any community of purpose. When difficulty arrives, do not minimize it. Acknowledge explicitly, this is hard. Here is why it is hard. Then immediately add, and here is how we will address it. This combination prevents panic. You have acknowledged the difficulty, so followers know you understand reality, whilst preventing despair. You have provided path forward, so followers know action is possible. The leader who pretends problems do not exist loses trust. The leader who acknowledges problems without offering direction creates paralysis. Both truth and direction are required. Real power is not making problems disappear, but maintaining your capacity to respond regardless of problems. When circumstances are terrible and you can still think clearly, still act decisively, still influence what can be influenced, that is power. This capacity does not require wealth, position, or vast resources. It requires trained capacity. A pauper who maintains agency under adversity possesses more real power than a king who collapses when his treasury empties. When you face circumstances beyond your control, and you will face them, for no one controls fortune entirely, explicitly identify what you cannot control and what you can control. Focus your energy entirely upon the second category. This prevents the exhausting waste of trying to control the uncontrollable whilst maximizing your actual influence where influence is possible. This is the essence of real power, full effect within your scope of agency, combined with acceptance of what lies beyond it. The people who follow you through genuine difficulty will remain loyal afterward in ways that fair-weather followers never can. Crisis is the forge of authentic leadership. It creates bonds between leaders and followers that prosperity never produces. You will discover that your power lies not in controlling circumstances, but in maintaining agency regardless of circumstances. This is simultaneously humbling. You control far less than you imagined, and empowering. You possess far more capacity than you knew. Your ultimate transformation crisis is not merely catastrophe to be endured, it is the forge in which human beings are transformed from ore into steel. In comfortable times, life can feel arbitrary, pointless, as though one day blurs into the next without meaning or direction. But in crisis, everything becomes terribly clear. You know exactly what matters. You know exactly what must be done. There is dreadful clarity to catastrophe, a focus that eliminates all triviality and reveals what is essential. Men who survive great crises report feeling more alive, more purposeful, more real than during years of ease. This reveals something profound about human nature. We are not built for comfort. We are built for challenge. I have lived through 2 global wars. I have seen empires rise and fall, old orders destroyed, and new orders built upon their ruins. I have known triumph and disgrace, the heights of power and the depths of exile, the sweetness of victory and the bitterness of defeat. These experiences were terrible. I would not wish them upon anyone, and I would not relive them if given choice. Yet I tell you honestly, I learned more about human nature, about my own capacities, about what truly matters in those crisis years than in all my comfortable years combined. Crisis stripped away illusions and revealed reality. It forced me to discover resources within myself I did not know existed. The man I became through crisis could not have been formed through peace alone. Like muscle that grows only under resistance, like steel that forms only through fire, human capacity develops fully only under pressure. You do not know what you are capable of until crisis forces you to discover it. You will not return to who you were before crisis. Part of you, the comfortable illusions, the naive assumptions, the belief in guaranteed security, burns away in the fire. What remains is harder, clearer, more resilient. Some people mourn this loss, wishing they could return to comfortable innocence. The winner recognizes it as necessary refinement. Ore becomes steel only through fire. The transformation is permanent, and it should be. Every generation faces its crisis. Ours is not unique. Study history and you will find catastrophe in every century, calamity in every decade. What matters is not whether crisis comes, for it will come, but how you respond when it arrives. You can break, as many do, shattering under pressure you believed should not exist. Or you can become tempered steel, stronger for having endured the fire. This choice is the ultimate test of character, and it is yours alone to make. After your next significant challenge passes, reflect consciously, what did this teach me about myself? What capacity did I discover? What illusion burned away? What remains? This deliberate processing transforms suffering into wisdom rather than merely endured pain. The crisis-forged wisdom should reshape your entire life going forward, not be discarded when difficulty passes. We have completed the journey from comfortable delusion to hard truth, from reactive panic to proactive capacity. You now possess the framework, the transformations, the practices, and the philosophical understanding. One question remains. Will you use them? Crisis is coming, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps years hence, but it is coming. When it arrives, you will discover what you truly are. My hope is that you will discover yourself stronger, more capable, more resilient than you believed possible. That in your darkest hour, you will remember what you have learned here, and you will think clearly, and you will act decisively, and you will prevail. For that is the ultimate truth about crisis. It cares nothing for your comfort or your plans. It cares only whether you will quit or whether you will fight. Most will quit. But you need not be among them.